Is the reigning rookie of the year, Corbin Carroll, back?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? Always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com to see all of my latest work. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll discuss if Corbin Carroll's back, adjustments that I want to see the D-backs make moving forward, and we'll preview Game 2 of this series against the Cincinnati Reds. But first, I want to say thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now, let's get into the podcast and let's recap Game 1 against the Cincinnati Reds, because the D-backs take down the Reds 6-2. Fun fact, the D-backs have yet to lose a Tuesday game this year. There was actually a fun little crossover because the D-backs hadn't won the first game of a series since opening day against the Colorado Rockies, but they also haven't lost a Tuesday game all year. So what was going to break first? Were the D-backs finally going to win an opening day game, or were they going to lose their first Tuesday game of the season? And instead, with Zach Gallen on the mound, with Corbin Carroll at the plate, the D-backs get the big victory and take down the Reds in game number 1. So let's get into some highlights from this game, because I think you have to start here when talking about that game against the Reds. You first have to start with Corbin Carroll, who we know has been in a major season-long slump. You can even say his slump has gone back to his injury from last year. Whatever you want to say, Corbin Carroll has been one of the worst players offensively in Major League Baseball this season. Even after tonight's game, his slash line is still 211, 300, 278. But let's get to the positives, because Corbin Carroll had himself a night. He drove in 5 of the 6 runs, 2 for 5, 5 RBIs, a run scored, and had a big opposite fly home run. Corbin Carroll, who has been batting around the 7th hole the last few games, Torey Lovullo said, you know what, Corbin, you've been swinging the bat a little bit better recently. We're going to move you up in the lineup. And it was such a savvy move by Torey. We talk all the time, sometimes when he's pushing the buttons, I don't always like the results. But this was a smart move by Torey Lovullo to move Corbin Carroll up in the lineup. We know he's been struggling, but recently he's been a little bit better. I believe he has hits in 5 of his last 6 games. It might be 6 of his last 7 after tonight. So I believe in 6 of his last 7 games, Corbin Carroll has a base hit. This was his first multi-hit game, I think, of the last few games during that stretch. So for Corbin Carroll, didn't just have a big, multi-hit night. Also had himself a pretty big home run as well. And it was a Corbin Carroll classic home run, because off the bat, it looked like just like a fly ball, but then it landed in the seats. That's kind of the thing for Corbin Carroll. All of last season, whenever he hit home runs, you would always be like, oh my God, just off the crack of the bat, off the swing, that did not look like a home run, but he had so much packed in power in that swing. The ball just always seemed to fly a lot farther than you realize. And of course, this season, that has not happened at all. Corbin Carroll has, of course, really struggled at the plate. There's not been a ton of power from him this season. But in this game, you got 2 pretty good base knocks from Corbin Carroll, and you got the big home run fly ball as well. That has to make Corbin Carroll feel so good because, as we say nonstop on this podcast, the D-backs are not going anywhere without elite Corbin Carroll. There is no World Series appearance. There's no getting back to another World Series if Corbin Carroll does not pick it up. And I just want to point out the fact Corbin Carroll now back-to-back games actually with multiple hits. He was 2 for 4 in his most recent game against the Padres. Now 2 for 5 against the Cincinnati Reds. Love to see Corbin Carroll finally get going because this whole D-backs team, nothing will happen with the D-backs in terms of them reaching their ceiling if we do not have elite Corbin Carroll back in the lineup. So great to see him finally starting to turn a corner just a little bit because I hate after every Corbin Carroll at bat, I have this feeling where just like I'm happy, but it's the kind of happy where it's like a teammate. Like, here's a good example. I play on a softball team, there's some players on my team. You look at the bottom of the lineup. If that player gets hit, you're like, oh my God, that was like, I didn't expect it, but I am so happy for you. I'm so happy for our team because it was just such an unexpected result. It almost feels patronizing at times, right? For Corbin Carroll, I don't want to be clapping my hands every time he gets a base hit because that's patronizing to the type of player Corbin Carroll is. The ceiling of what Corbin Carroll's future can be, we already saw it last year. So the fact that we have to celebrate every time he gets a base hit just feels disingenuous to how good he is of a player. So I want to get past this phase. I don't want to no longer feel like, oh my God, our little boy did it again. He got on base. No, Corbin Carroll is a superstar player going through a prolonged stretch right now. And I'm praying this is him finally starting to turn the corner because we need elite Corbin Carroll back in the lineup. One man who was elite and back in the lineup was Zach Gallen, who needed some extra rest after leaving his last start early. Gallen, fantastic, of course, looked like the ace that we always expect when we see Zach Gallen. 6 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, 3 walks, 6 Ks. Zach Gallen looked absolutely nasty. Didn't look like he missed a beat from leaving his last start early and getting some extra days of rest. Maybe the extra days of rest helped Gallen. Only threw 79 pitches, so he probably could have at least gone maybe one more inning or at least pitch into the 7th. His ERA now on the season, 2.84. Gallen, absolutely elite. I do want to say real quick, Corbin Carroll on his home run, exit velo 104.3. Not one of those home runs that's a home run in all 30 ballparks, unfortunately. Only a home run in 14 of the 30, but 104 exit velo. Very nice by Corbin Carroll. And right after him, Ketel Marte, back-to-back, 107.5 off the bat from Ketel Marte. That would have been a home run in 23 of the 30 ballparks. D-backs offense did just enough. They did score 6 runs, so a good night by the D-backs offense. Good night by Zach Gallen. And we saw Paul Sewald make his return in this game. Yes, he gave up a home run, but just nice to see Sewald. He just makes me feel so much more comfortable about the bullpen moving forward now that Sewald's back in that closing role. So hopefully all the other people in the pen, hopefully their roles start to make more sense now that Sewald is back. So absolutely love that for the D-backs future. But one guy who we don't know if he's coming back this series is Alek Thomas, who didn't feel so right after his most recent game in Reno. Sounds like he's getting another MRI for his hamstring, so he's going to be out just a little bit longer. We'll wait on the results for Alek Thomas, but at least we got Sewald back. At least Zach Gallen came back as well and looked dominant. And most importantly, Corbin Carroll at the top of the lineup, putting in work for the D-backs once again. Now we'll talk about some other adjustments I think the D-backs need to make if they want to continue their winning ways, and we'll talk about that in segment number 2. And hey, if you're having absolutely any car problems, then the best place you need to go is, of course, eBay Motors because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're to speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. If you want to see more content by me, please follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. And please follow me on Instagram, the personal handle as well, Millard.Thomas123. But now let's get back to the podcast and let's talk about some adjustments that I just saw in game number one that I want the D-backs to make moving forward, because I've seen a couple of trends, not just from game one, but in past games as well, that I just don't like at all. I feel like it would help the D-backs if they stopped a couple of these habits that they have. First off, the first habit, when there's a righty on the mound, how about we move Lourdes Gurriel down in the lineup? I love Lourdes Gurriel. He had a fantastic start to the season. His first 20 games of the year, one of the best 20 first games of any D-back in franchise history. But Lourdes Gurriel this season, first, he has been struggling mightily big time. In his last 20 games, 209 average, 562 OPS, and against right-handed pitchers, he's been horrendous. 191 average, 557 OPS. Against lefties, 341 average, 938 OPS. But he has sucked this season against right-handed pitching. So my petition to Torey Lovullo, again, we love Lourdes Gurriel. All I want. Doesn't get the full Corbin Carroll treatment. I'm not saying drop him down to number 7 in the lineup, but just switch him with Jock Peterson. Jock is batting 5th when there's a righty on the mound. Make him bat 3rd. He's been so good against right-handed pitchers this season. Lourdes Gurriel has struggled. Move Gurriel into that number 5 spot. Move Jock Peterson to that number 3 spot. I just think it makes so much more sense as a lineup because Jock Peterson is going to get on base way more than Gurriel out of that number 3 spot. So I don't understand why we don't move Jock in that slot, because he just way better than Gurriel against right-handed pitching this season. And Gurriel has struggled mightily in that area. So I would love to see Jock Peterson in that number 3 slot for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I'm not saying move Gurriel down to the number 7 slot. Just move him down to the number 5 spot. How about this one? I've seen the D-backs do this a few times this year. Can we stop bunting when there's no outs and a man on first? I get it, Torey. You like the small ball. There's a man on first, no out. You want to move them over, get the runner in scoring position. I just don't like sacrificing it out for just a man on first. If someone starts off an inning with a double, I'm okay. Bunting, move the runner over to third, and then hopefully you get a sacrifice fly with a 1 out. I don't like the logic of saying, let's just sacrifice outs, even though there's no outs, even though the man is only on first. Let's just sacrifice the out just to get the runner over to second. The D-backs offense has not been good enough this season, or has not been consistent enough this season to be like, let's play the percentages and move the guy into scoring position for the D-backs to potentially score a run here. I just don't like that game. I don't like giving up free outs. Again, I'm okay if it's a man on second, no outs. That's how you lead off the inning. But man on first, no outs. I just think the sacrifice of the out is just too big in that situation. And I just would not do that. So I would love for the D-backs to stop bunting with no outs and a man on first. Another one. I've seen this happen a couple times in the last couple weeks. When there's a man on first, especially when the guy is fast, and then there's a ball hit to deep right field and it gets bounced around in the corner, can we please send that man on first home to score? We saw Jake McCarthy get a great jump, and then I forgot who it was that sent that double down the line. But Jake McCarthy should have scored in that situation. Maybe it was Tucker Barnhart or Kevin Newman, but whoever it was, Jake McCarthy attempts a steal. It's a hit and run situation. He's already off and going, and then the ball is hit down the right field line. That should have been an easy hit and score for Jake McCarthy, but it just did not happen. And it happened, the same thing happened. I forget which game it was, but there was a situation. Gabriel Moreno on first. Corbin Carroll rips it down the line. Moreno looks like he can easily score from first, and then he gets held up at third base. D-backs are wasting opportunity on the bases. We get too aggressive and get thrown out so many times, rounding first, getting picked off. But then the times that I actually think we have a chance to score, we don't send our runners. So I think our base running has just been so inconsistent this year, and the D-backs definitely need to clean it up. This one, it doesn't sound as good today because Kevin Newman went 2 for 4, but can we just please play Blaze Alexander every single day? Obviously, Kevin Newman was very good today, but still on the season, he's only batting 200, slugging still 333. Blaze is our best offensive shortstop, and I know he struggles at times defensively, but Ella De La Cruz has 6 errors on the year. He struggled defensively at shortstop, but guess what? He makes up for it with his bat, his offensive profile, and Blaze Alexander this season has done the exact same thing. When he's in the lineup, it just makes opposing pitchers think so much more than if it's a Kevin Newman or somebody at the plate. So please play Blaze Alexander every single day. And then my final thing, Bryce Jarvis, he's starting to look a little shaky. I would just, as Erod starts to get healthy, maybe you swap Slade, move him in that long relief spot, send Bryce Jarvis back down to the minor leagues. Or until then, I'm also fine just saying, you know what? Let's keep Blake Walston on the major league level, and maybe we send Bryce Jarvis down, and then Walston could be a lefty and be a long reliever for the D-backs. So just a couple things to keep in mind because Bryce Jarvis, I think, has been struggling recently. I do like him a lot, but giving up a little bit too much hard contact in the last couple of weeks. So just some adjustments that I would like the D-backs to make if they want to continue their winning ways. We'll talk about the D-backs continuing their winning ways in game number 2 as we preview Jordan Montgomery versus Graham Ashcraft. Now, let me tell you guys about the #1 fantasy sports app, Prize Picks, because spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entries today. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. My favorite thing to do right now, Anthony Edwards, more or less on the points, the rebounds, and when it hits, I love seeing the money hit my account. And if you want to see money hit your account, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and let's do a little preview of Jordan Montgomery versus Graham Ashcraft. Jordan Montgomery is on the mound, and he is looking for a bounce back after struggling big time against the LA Dodgers. I was at that game, and Jordan Montgomery just did not have his best stuff. If you're looking at his game log this year, we got 2 of the 3 very good starts from Jordan Montgomery. First start for Monty against the Giants, 6 innings, 1 earned run. Second start, 7 innings, 3 earned runs. Then against the LA Dodgers, 3 innings, 6 earned runs. For Monty, do not want to see what he did against the LA Dodgers. Want to see the quality stuff that he showed in those first 2 games because Monty, when he's right, is getting that sinker ball to work. pitching to contact, getting ground balls, getting some lazy fly balls. He is at his best when he's doing that. He's not a big strikeout guy. Has only gone 3, 4, and 1 strikeout in his last 3 games, only 8 total on the season. So he's not going to be a big strikeout pitcher. He's a precision command pitcher. That's what he's best at. And in his last start, that's not what he was doing. He was not commanding. The control was not there. He gave up the 2 home runs. He was falling behind batters, gave up 3 walks. Like, it was a very weird Jordan Montgomery start against the Cincinnati Reds, a lineup that has not been the strongest this year. I do not want to see Monty get crushed by the Cincinnati Reds. Now, when you're talking about that lineup, Ella De La Cruz is definitely the man to stop, and the D-backs were able to do that in game number 1. De La Cruz went 0 for 4 with a strikeout. The entire Reds offense, only 3 hits, 8 Ks as well. So the D-backs pitchers in game number 1 were able to do their job against the Reds, and that's what we're going to need Jordan Montgomery to do in game number 2. You have to just do your job. This is an offense that has not been prolific this season. Of course, they're filled with major leaguers, of course. I actually do like the Cincinnati Reds lineup. I like De La Cruz, like Friedel, I like Encarnacion Strand. I like a bunch of their guys. I like India, I like Candelario, but they have not been able to put it together this season on a consistent basis. And so for Jordan Montgomery, who we signed to the biggest contract currently on the books, coming off the World Series, this is a good start for Jordan Montgomery to show D-backs fans like, yeah, I might have crapped the bed against the LA Dodgers, but I know how to have a good bounce back. I know how to get back on track and have success once again after struggling in my most recent start. Because once you get to the postseason, there are going to be times where you do struggle. You're not going to be elite every single start. So how do you respond to those situations? This is a big test for Jordan Montgomery to show D-backs fans how he responds to adversity. Need a big start from him against the Cincinnati Reds. And when you're looking for guys who have done a really good job against Jordan Montgomery in their career, the guy that I do want to call out real quick, I don't know. I honestly don't know his deal too much, but Santiago Espinal, I don't even know what's going on with him, but he's 6 for 16 in his career against Jordan Montgomery. We just look at Reds versus D-back stats. He is the man that stands out because he's one of 2 players on this team that has at least 10 at-bats against Jordan Montgomery, and he has a 375 average against Monty. So we'll see if Santiago Espinal plays in game number 2 against the Arizona Diamondbacks, because if he does, maybe he could be a little swing player for the Cincinnati Reds, considering how good he's been against Montgomery in his career. But outside of that, the sample sizes are just so small that I wouldn't even really touch upon it. So Santiago Espinal, if you're just looking at Reds players with any success against Jordan Montgomery in their career, you're looking at him. And then for the D-backs, going against Graham Ashcraft, he's someone that has been up and down his first couple of years in Major League Baseball, but having a year 3 breakout, 3-pitch type of pitcher. And I want the D-backs offense to give Graham Ashcraft a little taste of what he had to endure his first couple of years in Major League Baseball. He's going to throw the cutter over 40% of the time, and then slider, sinker after that. All 3 of them have been pretty effective, but I think that cutter has like a 280 average allowed against it this season, maybe 290. Like, you can put in some work against that cutter. And the craziest part about Graham Ashcraft when looking at his numbers and stats, he's a guy that for some reason does not pitch well at home. 10 earned runs in 10.2 innings pitched at home this season. So could be the perfect situation for the D-backs to go in there and make some noise, especially shock those Cincinnati Reds fans. And Graham also, the first inning, not his best this season. 4.5 ERA in the first inning. I think it's a 280 average allowed in the first inning this season. We, of course, know the D-backs put in work in the first inning this year. And if Corbin Carroll really has turned it around, if maybe could get a Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, a little back-to-back like we saw in the 7th inning, but in the first inning in game number 2, that could be a great way for the D-backs to start off that ball game with a bang. Then the final question I have for game number 2 is, Is Paul Sewald going to come in and close again if it's a closing situation? He was already used in game number 1. Don't know how the D-backs feel about him. First time coming back off the injured list, first time getting activated. Do you want to throw him out there in back-to-back games? Don't know if the D-backs want to do that. I would not be surprised at all if there's a closing situation, if it's Kevin Ginkel coming out the pen for the D-backs tomorrow. Just something to monitor. Maybe not expect Paul Sewald to be the closer in game number 2 again if the D-backs are finding themselves in a closing situation. Now that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.